Welcome to the Rising Woman Leaders podcast. We are a sisterhood of women stepping into courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. I'm your host, Meredith Rom, and here I'll be sharing personal insights as well as interviews with inspiring leaders and entrepreneurs so you can create more daily magic in your life and also grow your business without losing sight of spiritual values as a rising woman leader. If you like this podcast, use our hashtag Rising Woman Leaders, follow me on Instagram at Meredith Rom, and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com. You'll receive all the new and inspiring content, including insights I only share on email. Now get cozy with a cup of tea, light a candle, and grab a journal to listen to this week's magical radio podcast. Hello, everyone. I am so grateful to share this episode with you today with Faye. And we talked a lot about Mary Magdalene, which has been so interesting how Mary Magdalene has been coming up in my life. Just a couple weeks ago, I was at my friend's house and she was pulled out a big pile of books and said, "Here, I'm giving these away. You guys can take these." And the one that really spoke to me was the Magdalene Manuscript by Tom Kenyon and Judy Sion. I actually just started reading it this weekend. And also I'd been connecting with my friend Faye, who shares so much about the teachings of Mary Magdalene and weaves her into her work with women entrepreneurs. And then last night, on top of all of this, I went to this book reading ceremonial activation with an amazing light worker woman named Kaya Ra. She read a section from her book called The Sophia Code, and it was a channeled piece from Mary Magdalene. This all just feels very magical to all be coming together at the same time. If you haven't had a chance to look at the Kickstarter campaign for my book, Synchronicity, you're welcome to come check that out. I've been so grateful for all the support that's been coming in from everyone for the campaign, believing in the book, helping it to come into full manifestation. And I'm going to be sharing a lot more book readings. I just did a lot of recordings of excerpts from the book that I'm going to be sharing with you more on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. You're always welcome to write us a review on iTunes. Let me know what you're thinking of this show. I hope that you're having a beautiful day and that you really enjoy and get to be immersed in the teachings that Faye shares with us today. So without further ado, namaste. Enjoy the show. Well, welcome back to Rising Woman Leaders. This is Meredith Rom, and I have Faye Wylder here today. She is a light caster, a spiritual mentor, a mama, and a dancer. She mentors enterprising feminine leaders to activate their sovereignty and amplify their light, naturally increasing their spiritual and material affluence. She works closely with the overlighting mentorship of Mary Magdalene, which we'll be talking a bit more about today, and of streaming her mystery, her message, and unconditional love into modern entrepreneurship and living. Wow, thank you, Faye, for being here.
Thanks, Meredith. Oh my gosh, it feels so good to hear you introduce me. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor and pleasure.
Oh, yay. Well, I just wanted to share that I am thinking back to the first time that I met you. I think it was at our friend Ashley's house. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like you were beaming positivity at me. And it was just so warm and inviting and welcoming. And I felt like I knew you even before I knew you. So it was just so nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Right on. Yeah, I was probably also a little sweaty, which adds to my beam, but part of my human charm.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I'd love to just start by hearing, because we know each other, but I don't really know a lot about how you actually came to do this work and a little bit of your background. And I'm curious what led you to all of this, to entrepreneurship, to Mary Magdalene, to wherever you want to start off.
Yeah. Well, I think from a very young age, like the first time I can remember feeling this pull to do something in the world, to use my light or my magic to help people, is how it felt framed for me, was actually when Jim Henson died, which I guess I was probably 8 or 9, something like that. And I loved Sesame Street and the Muppets, and there was some deep resonance when I heard the news that he'd passed away, that his life he had used this special quality that only he had to create something so beautiful and meaningful for so many people. And I also understood that it was like fun for him, that was like his jam. And I can like remember that night and like where I was when my dad told me, and I didn't know a lot about death or anything like that. It was just like the message came through to me then, like that I wanted to use my life to be of service, but at the same time to have this quality of, it's like effervescence and ease and joy. And bringing like my unique, I call it like my frequency of light that only I have, in this lifetime. No one will ever have it again, ever. And that frequency will help certain people. It's not going to help everybody, but only I can help certain people. And that was always with me. And then I was, going to school. And in my teen years, I went through what I now call a dark night of the ego. I used to call it the dark night of the soul, but then I saw this wonderful passage somewhere, I can't remember where, but anyways, and this author said, there is no such thing as the dark night of the soul. The soul is always light. But our ego sometimes feels very, very threatened. And so we have to walk through the shadow. And so I walked through a really big freaking shadow for 5 years and, basically, was prepared to die and basically resigned myself to a life of that I just could never have imagined when I was younger. And I was saved by the grace of God, essentially, and forced in a way onto a spiritual path. And so it was through that spiritual path that I started to play and meet and exchange with God or Goddess, Great Spirit, the source of all that is, and found myself easily in that place. And at the same time, still so human. And I think I'll say here that Mary Magdalene first came to me when I was probably about 6 years ago in a healing session. One of the first times I'd ever met, like, a healer, a woman who was making her living, giving healing sessions in her living room. She had this beautiful kind of mosh pit, she called it, and you'd roll around and scream and breathe, and it was great, and part of me was like, what am I doing here? But I loved it too. And so after one of those sessions, I was lying there in this pool of my own consciousness, and I was on the side of a river, on a riverbank, and Mary Magdalene and Jesus were washing my hair in the river and loving me on this riverbank. And I knew who Jesus was, and I had heard of Mary Magdalene. I went to Catholic school when I was younger, though I'm not Catholic by my religious background. But anyways, somehow I knew who she was. I didn't know a lot about her. I'd never seen a photo of her or any imagery of her, but I knew who she was. She was Mary Magdalene, and she was there washing my hair. And so that was the first time I ever had an experience with her where she really, I feel, that day came and initiated me and reminded me that I was, one of her tribe, that I had been with her in her life as Mary Magdalene, in her lifetime that she lived with Jesus, and that I had sacred teachings and knowledge in my cells to pass on. Now, that did not happen for a long, long time. I just went about my life. I was a secretary. I lived in New York and rode the subway and wore little secretary outfits. And, it was like just trying to make my way and find a job. And, but always really interested in the body and dance, always been a dancer. So loving the somatic side of life and into yoga. So I got a yoga teacher training. I dabbled in acupuncture, always this seeking and looking for where's my path, wanting to heal, help people heal. So, I've come to this place where I am now in the last couple of years, really moving from kind of like health coaching and more lifestyle coaching into working with women, specifically women who have this light that they know needs to come out, but feels intimidating, scary, and maybe even unsafe to let out. And using my own experience, which I think is one of the most valuable things that we have as light casters, as healing women, is our stories. And the compassion that comes from like, hey, I've been here, I know what it's like, and I'm going to tell you how I walked through it. And the willingness to say like, here's how I did it and it didn't work out. I kind of screwed this up, and maybe we could try a different way, I think is so soothing. It's soothing balm to this energy that we've experienced of like, there's one way, they are going to tell me how to do it. Let me, Google it and figure out the right way, as opposed to looking deep inside of ourselves and finding what is right for us. And so for the past year or so, I've been working specifically with women entrepreneurs and helping them to, bridge this gap between what they really want to be saying and what feels safe to be saying. And integrating a lot of somatic healing and breath work and then practical, business strategy. And streaming Magdalene's message. And I've only just in the last 6 months come out and said, hey, I work closely with Mary Magdalene. She's my girl, and let's work with her life and see how it applies to what we're doing today.
So powerful.
And I'll just add, Meredith, that since I've done that, since I've come out and said, hey, Sisters of Magdalene, here I am, it's blown up in a way that I never could have imagined. So it was like the one little piece, that's the thing I was talking about with Jim Henson, right? It's like that one little nugget, that frequency of light that I always felt like, I could never say that out loud. People will think I'm weird, all that kind of stuff. Once I said that one piece,
that is so amazing. Yeah. When usually the thing we're most scared of, to share, is so much a piece of our purpose and our message and what we need to be here for. Wow.
And she's so cool. I mean, she has so much to teach us. And it's like the thing that's really been happening over the last few months and years for women is we are waking up and seeing, this, Meredith. I mean, it's fun to preach to the choir, though, but it's like, this is real. This rising tide, right? I call them enterprising women. You have, women leaders, rising women leaders, right? Is that your hashtag? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
It's real. It's actually happening. It's not just something that we're, like a woo-woo sect of people is making up. It is our time. We're coming into this new age, right? Everybody can feel it. And we are being called to integrate these old energies with these current energies to make something completely new that we've never experienced before. And Mary Magdalene has been, waiting. Is that the right word? She's just been steady with unconditional love until the time was right. And now it's safe to say her name and bring her incredible love into our path. So I love her. I get so excited working with her. It's such a blessing.
Wow. Yes, it's so true. Women are waking up and they are often looking for guidance because it can be really scary when we begin to wake up and look around and feel like, oh, am I different than everyone else? And how do I how do I get support around this and actually say the things I want to say and come into that message of awakening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
also really love that you shared, like you just kind of stated and owned that there is a message that you have, that there's some people that only you can help. I love that. I think that is something people really need to hear, because I know a big thing that can come up is like, oh, so and so is already doing something like that. You know, I how could I do that? But actually, there are some people that like only you can reach.
Mm-hmm.
That's so freeing.
Yeah, totally. Especially because not everybody wants to buy your stuff. And so then you can let yourself off the hook and not take it personally and say, oh, I'm just not the right person for them. I think, I sometimes, I'm a natural ham. Like, I love to be on the stage and I love to be the center of attention. And I always have been that way. I'm a performer. And I'm not, I don't, there's like people that are like, I'm an extroverted introvert. I think I'm just an extrovert. But it's like that there's that feeling of like, when I put myself out there, it's a little bit selfish sometimes. Like, I want you to love me. And it can be easy to forget that this is about service, that I am here to serve. And that by giving of myself, I'm actually, that's when I'm receiving the most, first of all. But I'm not going to land with everybody. And I cannot spend energy. I can be thoughtful. I can be clear. I can, edit with my heart, you know, but I cannot spend my time trying to make everybody get on board with me, because I'm not for everybody. And at the same time, when I do that, when I curtail my message, right? When we shrink back a little bit because we might be too shiny for some people, or, we don't bring something up because we might, we know that might not be the quite right thing that person wants to hear to make to work with us, to kind of close the deal. I am robbing myself and them, and I'm making myself unavailable to somebody who I could potentially be helping.
Wow.
So,
Wow. That's huge. Yeah. It's like if we're trying to fit a square into a circle and it's just not going. And sometimes we really want to stick with it. Like, no,
yep.
this has to work. Sometimes we're so focused on that we don't realize all the other potential that's out there.
That's
All the
right.
people that need us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and we don't have to control everything. It's all divinely guided. And when I surrender, in my life and my family, my children, my business, it's better. When I really give it to Great Spirit, to God, it's better than when I'm like making it happen and, you know, just following up with everybody. It's better. It's always sweeter and easier and more productive. So,
I love that. Yeah, we're all off the hook.
yay!
Yes, surrender.
Yep.
Well, I would love to dive in a little bit into more about Mary Magdalene. I'm familiar with her, but not that. Like, I feel like I'm one of those people that has a lot to learn, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to are like, okay, yeah, I've heard of her. I know who she is, a little bit. But could you tell us a little bit about her and like what part of her message really speaks to you and makes you like so lit up and wanting to share?
Great. So, the first thing I want to say is that anybody who's listening to this that feels called by Mary Magdalene, or even just kind of like turned on by those words, know that you are welcome here. Even though you just feel like a little something, you are a part of this circle. That this divine feminine rising that's happening is real, like I said before. And everybody has their own sort of style of doing it, right? We have these different archetypes and different goddess vibes that we work with. And I think in part because it's who I work with, but I see so many sisters of Magdalene waking up right now. And for anybody who doesn't know, this year was really, really powerful for Magdalene because the Pope of the Catholic Church gave her her own feast day. And feast days are reserved for the apostles. And so this Pope, I mean, he's something else, this guy, he finally said after 2,000 years, Mary Magdalene, and he said, quote, was the apostle of the apostles of Jesus. And so that happened. I think he made that announcement June 10th, and her feast day is now July 22nd. So mark your calendars. And it was this recognition by this, big, powerful, patriarchal administration, the Catholic Church, that Mary Magdalene is the divine feminine Christ light. Those are my words, not his words, but in essence, recognizing the power of the feminine. This is incredible. This took 2,000 years. And so for many years, up until this point, I think in the early 70s, the Catholic Church finally conceded that Mary Magdalene was not a whore who Jesus saved, which was her reputation for a long time. And Mary Magdalene works a lot with reputation and a lot with sexual healing, with sexual trauma. I have a pretty extensive background in that myself with my own personal story. So I was always called to her, in this way, like, because she kind of had, people called me all the way Faye in high school, right? So you get the drift. And so she had this reputation that I could relate to, and that made her approachable to me, even though it's not true. And I think that's one important point that I took this summer when the Pope made this announcement, is that it's beautiful that we try to tell the story truthfully and we try to understand what really happened. And at the same time, it does not matter if if she was a whore, if she was a prostitute. That does not lessen anyone's divinity. That unconditional love, which is the heart of her message, unconditional love means no matter what the condition, I am love. I am loved. Period. Period. And so that it's not about rewriting the story so much as it is about accepting all the parts of ourselves and accepting, using this swab of compassion that we all have access to wash ourselves and wash the world. So Mary Magdalene was Jesus's beloved. She walked with him as his partner in every way possible. She was his co-teacher. She was his co-minister. She was the divine feminine Christ light embodied. So together, Jesus and Mary show us the power of the union of masculine and feminine. And you'll read about that, Meredith, in Tom Kenyon's beautiful book, The Magdalene Manuscript, is a lot about, it comes from Magdalene, who was trained in the school of Isis, goddess Isis. And so there's so much beautiful information in there about Kundalini and about sexual awakening and about this incredible power that we have as human beings to come together and make life, right? And that making life can be making a baby, but it's also about making anything we want, that we are the creator. And, so I'm getting fired up, Meredith. You have to help me understand time. Okay. So and it brings us to this word of sovereignty, and that we are creating everything around us all the time. And so that's beautiful on the one hand, because you're like, great, I can manifest anything I want. Perfect. And then on the other side of the coin is I am 100% responsible for what I am experiencing right now, which can be a little bit tougher. It's like a little more muddy water, right? And so sovereignty is that I am a fractal of God wearing this little Faye costume today. And when I recognize that power in myself and I recognize that power in other people, we can make anything, whether it's I'm making a new course offering, right? I'm making a new web page. I'm writing a beautiful book. I'm making a new situation occur out of maybe a difficult situation. I'm making a new attitude when I usually have maybe one that makes me feel blech, right? So Jesus and Mary together showed us this beautiful weaving of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And I would say that their message right now is so obviously, I mean, considering our political climate, where we have like, I mean, does anybody else see this? Like this incredibly polarized, these examples of polarized, you know, feminine and masculine kind of like trying to beat each other. And what Magdalene invites us to is the recognition of, we had a time of the goddess, and now we've had a time of the god, and now we are creating a new time that will weave them both together. So Mary Magdalene and Jesus planted these seeds 2,000 years ago. And, you know, there's so much more to say. I feel like I'm going to stop with sort of the history there, but there's so much more to say. And I will plug myself here and say that I offer private mentorship for women entrepreneurs, infusing this history and these messages and these downloads from Magdalene, you know, integrating it into work and to life and to play and to love. So hit me up if that sounds good. And I also offer a group journey called the Magdalene Entrepreneur. Same thing, but in a group setting. So I'm booking for 2017 because I'm having a baby any minute. And so we can dive in way deeper there because there's so much more. But basically, you know, I think the only other thing I want to say about her is, or we'll see what happens, but another important piece is that, you know, Magdalene is called the Apostle of the Apostles because she was the witness to the resurrection, right? She was at the tomb. She went to the tomb, and she was also really devoted to the human body. Her magic was in anointing, and Christ, the word Christ means the anointed one. And so she is the person, the human being who anointed Jesus as Christ. So she's, you know, it wasn't like she was following him around and doing, you know, learning from him. She got the same downloads he did. They were side by side, okay? Equals in every way, every way. And so she went to this tomb where Jesus was to anoint his body because she was so devoted to the human body and to the human experience. And if you look at her life, you know, what ended up happening for her, she lost her beloved. You know, during her life as a minister with Jesus, she was always in a great deal of danger. If you think about the times that they lived as a woman, you know, standing as an equal with a man, she was very unusual in this way and practiced, you know, total magic to keep herself protected. And then she had to flee her home with her children and go preach from caves, you know, far, far away from her homeland. So it's like a rough go, you know. And so really human, you know, we all have these rough go. We're all going to have them. If you haven't had it yet, it's probably going to happen. And at the same time, just being like so clear that we're not victims. So clear that we're not victims. And that, in fact, everything is happening for our highest good. So she shows up at the tomb to anoint the body. And because she shows up, the resurrection is made possible. Because it's like, I think of it as if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? And so if no one's there to see that Jesus resurrects, which is a metaphor for our power to rebirth over and over and over again and again and again, to recreate again and again and again, does it actually happen? Do we get the message anchored into our human experience? You know, maybe we would have somewhere, but she did it. She showed up. And so the showing up at the tomb to me is this willingness to show up to our own, you know, the tomb of our life, the darkness of our life, but also like our death, like to show up to take action, to show up, and we're here to be a part of humanity, you know, and then in that walking with humanity, we get to see miracles. So and then she carried the message to the apostles who thought she was nuts, right? So the story goes. And then she got outcast and was called a whore for the next 2,000 years, you know? But here she is today, standing. She's like, I'm not a victim. You cannot. And this is the beautiful thing is like, she shows us that no matter what people think of us or say of us, because usually when I think people are talking smack about me, it's really just some part of my own consciousness talking smack about me, So it's like maybe I'm giving myself my reputation, or maybe a bunch of other people are, who knows. But the point is, I'm not a victim, that I have the power to recreate my experience anytime. Anytime.
Yeah. Yes. I want to touch back on your definition of sovereignty, which just like really landed for me. On one hand, we have 100% ability to manifest our lives and what we want to create. And on the other hand, we're also 100% responsible for everything we're experiencing, even the challenging stuff, even though we might want to put that off on someone else. I've been experiencing that just recently, and last night I went to dance. My partner leads a dancing freedom in our town, and we have a harvest at the end of the dance. And last night we ask, what does our heart have to say to us in this moment? What does our higher self have to say to us in this moment? And my higher self said, all of your challenges are blessings. All of them. All those difficulties. Everything that you don't want to happen or has happened and you wish it hadn't happened. Like, it's all a blessing. And part of that being because those times have really deepened my connection to the divine. And where some people might say, oh, like the divine wasn't there for me in that. But actually, like, for me, it was, those times really called me to be more humble and more surrendered and more like, I need help, or I can't do this alone. And that just deepened the connection to something greater than myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel you. And I think one other thing to, I try and keep in mind, and I mean, I'm not master of sovereignty yet. I'm totally, like, I am practicing. And I also think we got to remember the mystery that there is this essence. I'm a fractal of God, and yet I'm not, like, all God. Like, I'm not. And there is the mystery. We don't know. We don't know. Like, I think I know, and I have, like, a pretty good idea, and I love to talk about it, the divine, and play with it, and I love it. And I cannot fully wrap my arms around it. I can control everything that's happening all the time. So it's again that what you said, that mantra, like, we're off the hook too. So it's like, and all spiritual teachings I have found are paradox, right? So it's like, I'm off the hook and I'm 100% responsible. And, it's like, just for me, practice I do in my regular, like, everyday life all the time is I say, who is the they? I have little voices, and I see them with my clients so much. I'm like, wait, well, what do I think? What am I? It comes up a lot too as a pregnant woman, and, like, what's allowed with pregnant and birth, and, well, what do they say? What does the doctor say? And it's like, well, who is they? Right? Like, who is the big they that has put me in a position of dictating what kind of life I should be living?
I'm curious about how Mary Magdalene's message and all you've been learning has affected your path as a mother and as being pregnant.
Well, motherhood is a mixed bag. And I would say I'm just grateful to not be alone on the planet as a mother, and grateful that there's so many mothers out there. And, I work a lot too with Mother Mary, who was one of Mary Magdalene's mentors, and they lived together at the end of their life. And she helps me a lot with this sort of, it's like if Mary Magdalene is integrating the human and the divine in a beautiful way, and the masculine and the feminine. Mother Mary is pure love. Just like you can just like sink back into her arms. And as a mother, what I have found is that anything that is coming up with my son usually is something about like a place in me that I need to heal. I would say the same is true for my business, which is so interesting. So, just feeling, I'm trying to think of a good example. I don't have one coming, but, just again, all these opportunities for compassion and all these opportunities to apply more love, always to give more love. And one thing I've found is that it's that surrender and trust, because it's like if I'm walking into a situation with my son Forrest, and I can see like the damage that's going to be done through like whatever, he's going to dump out all of his toys onto the carpet, which means I have to clean them all up, and I'm really tired and pregnant, and like let's try and do something else. And I have that sort of tightness in my body that can my cells, that fear that if I approach the situation in that way, I'm going to get, and this comes back to sovereignty, right? Like I'm going to get a certain outcome, and he knows it. He's an empath. All little children are empaths. I mean, like that's all they're doing is feeling. And so then we're just kind of like bonking against each other in this fight, as opposed to, I trust that everything is all right. I'm safe. I believe that I'm safe. I can relax. I'm going to approach this with love. And even just like having that energy behind my eyes when I look at my son changes everything. And I think it's the same when I approach my business and when I approach my clients and when I approach myself. And it doesn't mean that I just let, things go haywire and we're like pouring sand all over the living room. Because there's also the need for structure. And, I am here to guide Forrest in the ways of this third dimensional reality. But with a light touch, to wear it like a loose garment, my friend says. So, and I also think Mary Magdalene has really helped me so much in my marriage, which when my partnership is, strong. And by strong, I mean like we are devoted to one another, and we see one another, and we are celebrating each other. Life with Forrest is like cake. I mean, it's cake most of the time. He's such a sweet boy, but he feels it, having that balance between the two of us. And with my pregnancy, I mean, I just feel so much freer in this pregnancy than I did with my son. And I also feel more willing to accept help. I've always been like, I don't want to look vulnerable. It's sort of like one of my things. I don't want to look like I don't know. And so it can be hard for me to let people in to help me. And I think, my first birth was really long. It was 3 days long, and I had a C-section at the end of it. And it was like devastating for me in a lot of ways. And I don't think I could have done anything differently, and I mean, I've been down every path I could imagine to try and think, oh, how could I have controlled it to make it different? And that's, birth. She's mysterious. Birth is mysterious, and she's her own animal. But this time I just feel like, hey, like I've asked some people to come and be with me and support me in these really beautiful ways that I would never have thought to even consider when I was giving birth to Forrest. And that comes from my time with Mary Magdalene and my willingness to accept her help and to accept her love, accept her saying, yes, you're doing it. You're doing great. Like you're on the path, like right on.
That's so good. Yeah. Allowing ourselves to ask for help when we need it, and to know that people on it, most of the time they really do want help, and they're just like not aware of what it is that we need.
That's right. Yeah, and that, to give people credit, that people see our beauty. They really are here to help us, and they see our beauty.
Yeah. And would you share the eagle story about the new baby coming?
Yeah. Oh, so in let's see, September of 2015, I went to Mount Shasta to take a journey with one of my beloved teachers, Kaya Ra, and who also really helped open the door to Mary Magdalene for me. And we went to the mountain. We climbed up the mountain with a little group of people with a guide to do a water ceremony. And so I guess Forrest was just a little over 1 year old. And I've always kind of known I wanted to have more than one child. But this was at a time in my life where my business I was like really prolific. I felt so creative and inspired, and like words pouring out of me. Like I had so many ideas. I wanted to be everywhere, everything and all the time. And so the idea of having a second child during those, that month was not really on my mind. So we go up to have this prayer, this baptism, and I went towards the end. So I watched everyone else's prayer, and I can remember that day thinking what I was just sharing with you, like, oh, it's so hard for me to surrender and look like I need help. And I'm probably going to somehow pray wrong, or, oh, I don't even know what to say. So I got up there to the water and sat across from Kaya, and the words came out of my mouth. I'm calling in the spirit of my second child now. And as soon as I said that, a big bald eagle flew over our circle. And I don't know if I would have noticed it, but one of the other members was like, oh my God, freaking out, like jumping and dancing and like, look at a bald eagle. And our guide, who's been traveling there for years, was like, oh, I've never seen one here. This is incredible. And it was beautiful. I've seen a bald eagle once before, but he was just sitting on a wire. To see this bird, this mythic bird flying over our head, was in itself such powerful medicine. And then to realize, hey, I called that bird here. That was my prayer. What a big prayer that I have. And absolutely, like, how cool for this baby to have that energy and medicine coming. I mean, who is this baby going to be? Who knows? But it was like so empowering for me to realize when I pray, I am answered. And all of us, when we pray, we are answered. And it's like about opening and accepting and being willing to believe that we are being answered that makes it possible. So, so this is my eagle baby. And then I'll just throw in here, I think I told you this part too, Meredith, that so I fully expected when I came down the mountain that day, I was like, I'm going to take a pregnancy test. I'm probably pregnant right now. Like light weaving, like virgin birth, And I was not pregnant. And so, and I didn't get pregnant that month. And I was like, oh, well, maybe that was all a big fluke, like maybe that wasn't what that was. And so it just called in again this piece of the mystery, which is often wrapped up with timing. Like divine timing is often kind of hard to deal with. And I got pregnant, I think, in February. So it was, several months later. And so that there's that piece, there's this mystery that, yes, I believe that was the essence of my child and the essence of my power and our union. And at the same time, like, it's not like boom, and the universe, God, spirit, whoever you call it, knows and has infinite perspective. Like that bird has this beautiful bird's eye view that I don't have, and I have at most times a limited perspective of what, a timeline is like. So yeah, my eagle baby. And I can share, I think so. My friend, I'll just share generally, my friend made a photo of me, like a beautiful piece of art that she incorporated a photo of me and like some words that I shared with her. And there's an eagle flying overhead. And I wrote her, I was like, oh my God, do you know the eagle story? She's like, what eagle story? So it's a lot of really powerful. It's just, beautiful, those synchronicities.
Yeah, you're in the flow. You're so in
Uh-huh.
the flow. And I got to witness our friend Lizzie gifting you this bald eagle feather, which was just like, oh my God, too much.
So much magic and power and grace, and it's not just like us. If you're listening to this call, it's not like some select group of people. It's you have it too, sister. You have it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, let's see. I have a couple more questions. I wanted to ask you. You had written to me about affluence and the real meaning of affluence, and I'm really curious about what you want to share about that.
Okay. Well, to me, I'll just, I love words. I love looking words up and discovering where they come from and how they sound and playing with them. And so we hear the word affluence and abundance a lot. And, I'll just share really honestly that I live in a really wealthy place that I sometimes feel like I don't belong. And I also sometimes feel very angry because there's so much in one place and so little in other places right nearby. Like where I grew up, right across the bridge, there's like, there's schools without windows. And in the town where I live, people, it's like there's so much. There's so much. So I consider the word affluence, and I work with the word affluence as a steady flow back and forth. So, there is an element of prosperity to that word. Definitely, it's like if we think of a river, that there's plenty of water in that river, and that the river is putting out the energy just as much as it's receiving, that there's a balanced flow. Yeah, so just how much attention, energy, love I'm giving to my material world, containers that I'm creating for my money and my material world. And then also, am I allowing myself to receive? How does it feel to get money from a client? How does it feel to receive praise? Do I kind of undercut it with oh, whatever, or you look great too? And just playing with those energies and being mindful that it's like the balance of low that makes it really feel vibrant. And I would also just chime in here with I think a really important question that I've been asking myself as a mother is how much am I consuming versus how much am I creating? And what am I passing on to my son? He said the other day something was not quite working. He's like, let's get a new one. And I thought, oh, well, wait, let's try and fix this one, or make something up. And so just being conscious of how much am I taking in, and because we can get totally zombified buying and searching, and it's that feeling of if I get more of whatever, I'm going to feel good, when really that for me comes from the creation of creation of whatever, and usually when I'm going to start creating, what you touched on, Meredith, is that I need help. So then there's that receiving, right? That beautiful idea of receiving, which is a total Magdalene, this being the holy chalice, being the holy grail means that I'm a cup. I'm ready to receive, and then I get full and I pour out and I overflow.
Wow. Yeah, I love that so much. And I just let's see, I just want to ask a question to you that I ask everyone on the show, which is around when we step out to take bigger steps, bigger leaps in the world, something that is so normal that comes up is fear and self-doubt. And I'm curious, in the last year or so, what fears or doubts have come up for you, and how have you worked with them and been with them and even overcome them?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love my fear, and I don't try and make her go away. I welcome her, and I don't know what doubt hasn't come up. I mean, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I thin enough? Do I know how to make a website enough? Does anybody understand what I'm saying enough? Blah, blah, blah. Am I approved of enough? Blah, blah, blah. So I think that it goes to that place. It's so much of this affluence idea of having. I'm just going to borrow from Bruce Lipton, who's a really fabulous scientist and has a lot of science on epigenetics and the study of cells. Basically, our cells exist in either expansion or contraction, and that existence is dependent upon our belief, not our thought, but our belief. And so it doesn't matter how much positive self-talk or mantra I have saying like, yes, you can, yes, you can, yes, you can. If I have cellular pockets in my body that say, I don't believe it, it's not going to happen. And there is something to be said for like faking it till I make it, just doing it even with the fear. But I also have found so much relief and comfort in different embodiment practices, which always start with the breath. Just taking a deep breath, friends, oh my gosh, changes everything, right? And inviting the fear and the doubt to have a voice and to welcome them into the experience. And always tapping back into that place of like, I am a sovereign creator. I'm safe no matter what. I am protected no matter what. Nothing can harm me, period. And breathing, like kind of dancing with those two places, the yes I can and the no I can't. And always, 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 it's a promise. We will always come back to unconditional love. If we peel off these layers, with enough breath, and sometimes it can take time and it's not like a permanent healing always takes place, but always, always, always underneath fear is just love. Mm-hmm. So, I think just remembering that fear is not going to go away. She's part of my humanity, and God bless her because she has kept me safe on many occasions, and she's welcome to come along on the ride. I just wrote a little poem on Instagram that was like, come on, fear, we fly with the wings of the goddess. I can't remember, but it was so beautiful. Over every sunrise. And you got to go check out my Instagram to see it. But it was like, hop on, like there's room for you. And I'm so freaking powerful that, you're not going to run my life anymore. And being honest about it really helps me. And talking about it really helps me. And then taking action. Like just, okay, now we're going to do it. Time to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that when we are in the action, it is a lot easier to, when we're not in the action, the fear has more space to like get bigger and bigger and bigger. Uh-huh. But when we are in the action, it's like we have somewhere to direct our energy.
Yep.
It's beautiful. I'm curious about what you're excited in your business and your life right now and what's coming up. Anything else you want to share about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited because I have a business right now that I don't want to leave to give birth to my child. I mean, I've consciously set aside the next few weeks. I'm not working with clients or doing much, but I mean, I'm still creating. Stuff is coming out of me all the time. And I'm just so grateful that I have like a circle of sisters who are doing this work and who I can watch and who I feel supported by and loved by. And such beautiful clients, like just doing amazing things. I get to watch them unfold. So what I'm excited about really is for 2017 is that I have right now at time of recording 2 more spots for my private mentorship container, which is a 3-month journey infused with Magdalene's message for women entrepreneurs. But even if, it's like, even if someone doesn't have a business, I like the word enterprising because we all have an undertaking, whether it's motherhood or we have art on the tip of our fingers, or we have like an inkling of a business idea. Those are the women I love to work with so that they can organically and, fluidly create from the ground up what they're really into and feel safe to iterate and change. So the 2 more spots for that. The Magdalene Entrepreneur was incredible this last round, and I don't exactly know how she's going to evolve. She'll probably be a little bit bigger in some way next year, but she'll be coming around. And I love playing on Instagram. It's so fun there, and there's so much beauty and light happening. So, and I'm excited to give birth to this eagle baby and see who they are. So
I
that can
can't
happen
wait.
any
I can't
minute.
wait to meet the eagle baby.
I know.
Yeah, and I will include all the links to everything you just shared about your Instagram, your Magdalene mentorship. I think those are going to be so eye-opening for the women that feel called to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, Faye, so fun chatting with you. Do you have any closing words for us? Anything that you would, any last words that you can leave us with?
I would just say that making new things, creating new paradigms can feel a little scary. So don't do it alone and keep breathing.
Yes.
Yeah. And thank you, Meredith. I love you. I'm so glad to connect with you in this way. And I feel many years ago, I was had a little dream that one day I would be on a podcast. Oh. And here I
am. Wow.
Thank you.
I feel blessed to help you make that come true.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for blessing us with your presence, with your energy. Being in your energy, I feel this deep presence and grounding, and I'm so grateful for that. And I would love to just close this call with a short prayer. So we'll
Beautiful.
Come back into our breath, close our eyes. Just feeling the resonance, the light, the words that have been shared in this call today. Just allowing them to permeate your body. Just seeing what you want to hold in your heart going out into the world. What gems have stayed with you? Do you want to welcome, invite, open to even more? I'll bring my hands to my heart center. May we all continue on our paths, walking together, community and sisterhood, stepping towards the unknown with courage, with love, with light. I'll bow to you all. Namaste.
Namaste. Oh, beautiful. Amen.
Amen.